So today's cardinal lesson, we're going to show you how you can get a guaranteed income for life. And we're going to show you with a specific client that just purchased this plan from us, an annuity with $850,000, and why he put that money in there, because he's clearly going to make less money on that than he would if he had the money invested. So we want to go through and show you like why he did this. And this is a very important meeting today in a video to get some of you. We're not so much trying to sell you annuities, because if you are doing fine in the market and you want to have your money invested in the market, we do that too. And we have some people just philosophically, they don't want anything to do with any of this. And what we're going to want to show you is why this particular guy chose to take what is about 18%, 17% of his portfolio and put it into this product. So, and I want my partner here, Tom Griffith, to share with you why this video matters, why this topic is of importance to you.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of times people will come in, and one of the main questions we get is they're heading into retirement, and their biggest fear is running out of money. Is, do I have enough where I'm not going to run out when I'm in my 80s or 90s? And the question is, I mean, it just depends on how much you want to spend and how much, we have to make some assumptions on returns and things like that. But, the number one concern is they're scared that they're not going to have enough to be able to have the retirement they want. What annuity can do is it can guarantee an income that will last the rest of your life, no matter how long you live, just like Social Security. That is the only thing that we have that can guarantee you don't have an income that stops in the future. And so that is a big reason why someone might consider doing this with a portion of their money, is to shore up their income to have enough to be comfortable. The other thing the annuities can do is it removes the risk from the stock market, depending on the type of annuity. So I'm not talking about variable annuities, but if you looked at other type of annuities, fixed indexed or even a fixed annuity, those remove the risk out of the stock market. So you cannot lose money when the market's going down. So you think about the beginning of this year. I mean, this year has been really tough for stock markets. People whose money were in annuities, the right type of annuity, they haven't had to worry about their money losing any value. And so we'll get into the specifics of this one in a second, but that would be the reason someone might consider purchasing an annuity.
Okay, so this gentleman, he is 64. His wife is 64. He's still working, making a pretty large income, and he's got a full portfolio of about $5 million. 3 million of it plus is in IRAs, and the rest is in other things. So most of it invested in the stock market. And so by the time we're all done, he's probably going to have his stock market money managed by us, and we're going to be helping him manage the risk on that piece of it in investing the money for future and for growth. So he hasn't gotten completely out of the market. He didn't throw all his money in this, but he arrived at the number of $850,000 with us that he put into this annuity with one company. And the feature that he was most interested in, well, actually the feature he was most interested in is the $70,800 of income that is, if he starts it at age 72, he and his wife, which is 8 years from now, he and his wife are going to earn $70,800 every year for the rest of both of their lives. In other words, if one of them lives to 100, it's going to be over $2 million coming in just regularly, never stop. It is, as we're saying, a guaranteed income for life. He wanted to raise the floor of what he just knows he has no matter what happens. This is with a huge insurance company that's backed up by all of that. They're going to get large Social Security checks. Between he and his wife, they're going to have about this amount of money coming in from Social Security when they ultimately retire and file and all that kind of stuff. And by the time he actually starts the income, this whole $850,000 is going to be converted to a Roth. So this money that's going to come into them for life is going to be tax-free. And then they're not going to pay much taxes on their Social Security if they do a good job of managing their other money. It kind of gives them $140,000 a year tax-free for life. And then the second feature that caused him to buy this particular annuity is it has an income doubler on it. And what that simply means is if either one of them needs home health care or they need to go into a facility like a assisted living, that the income for life doubles for the whole time that they're needing the long-term care. So in other words, then they'll be getting $140,000, $141,000 for every year. It's probably going to be paid out monthly to them. It has a doubler effect, so it's like inherent long-term care insurance. And that was very attractive to him. And then if both of them were to meet an early death, this is not the kind of annuity that once you start the payments, that the principal's gone. It just winds down and it's drawn out of the principal. And if both of them met an early demise, then a very large balance is still going to be in there in the Roth, and it's just going to go tax-free to their heirs. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like Tom to get out the spreadsheet of one of the pages on this annuity and just talk about some of the features of it a little bit.
Sure. And so one thing we were starting to do on our videos is we're having show notes for the videos we have. So it's a resource that you can get and go along with as we're doing the videos. It's not a requirement, but we found it helpful. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to go to cardinalguide.com, which is our website. That's going to take you to where you can find these show notes. It's under the 7 worries section. And so each video we do is under one of these topics. So this particular one is under retirement income. We're going to click on that. And then at the bottom of this page, if we scroll down, we're going to go to an area that's called a learning center. And this is where the show notes are. So if we click on this, it's going to pull up the show notes. The first page of the show notes is just the board. So you can have a printed out. You can look at it if you want to have it as something you can reference. Underneath that for this one is we have a pullout of the annuity that we recommended for him. And so I want to go over a couple of things in here. Is a couple of definitions. First is this GLWB. It stands for Guaranteed Lifetime Withdrawal Benefit. And this is what guarantees that you're going to receive an income for the rest of your life. And so for this one, we did it a joint payout. So it's paying for both him and his wife's life. So no matter how long either one of them lives, they're going to get this money for. And like Hans was mentioning, is it has a long-term care income doubler. So if you can't perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, they will double that income for as long as they're needing care. If we look at the chart below, there's a lot of things going on here, but I'll just point you to a couple columns. If we look at the third column from the left, it's called annual withdrawal. You can see it starts out at zeros all the way until 72. So they put the money here, they invest it. This was $850,000 they invested, and it sits there. And you're not taking income for several years. And then you start the income at some point in the future. It does not have to be 72. You could start it at any point. The longer you delay it, the higher it is. But our plan now is to start it at 72, but that could change in the future, and that's fine. But at 72, the income would be $70,800 annually for the rest of both of their lives. And so it's a really nice supplement to their already high Social Security checks. There's a lot of other things that here, we don't need to get into all the details, but I do want to point out the second to right column, the long-term care income doubler. If we scroll down to age 72 and look over there, it's the doubled amount is $141,600. So it doubles the $70,800 for long-term care. And so one of the things that this annuity did for him was it checked off a lot of the boxes. It covered a lot of the topics that we cover in our videos. I mean, it's doing the income, it's covering taxes, because with this one particularly, we bought a series of these. We actually covered this in our last video, but he bought 4 identical annuities that were converting over time to get it from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. So it covers the taxes. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when Hans comes back on here, but it kind of checks off a lot of the boxes while providing this income that he's able to get. And so I think this worked really well for him. This isn't right for everybody, but I think, for a lot of people, this can make a lot of sense.
Okay. Now, I mean, if you're him for just a second, if he's got $850,000 that he can tie up for several years, I mean, one option for him was just to stay invested. And if he could earn 10% a year, which is very little chance that 10% is going to come in every year for 8 years. But when people make comparisons, we got to assume something. So if he could make 10% a year for 7 years or 7.2 years, he could turn his 850,000 into 1.7 million. And forget the annuity, just have it invested. And then he would very easily be able to draw out these amounts and, go on and live happily ever after. So when you just look at the upside, when everything's rosy, and you compare an annuity to being invested, where you're making assumptions of returns, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you'd be better off just being invested. But that's not why he did this. I mean, what this guy did is he wanted to guarantee that he has a certain amount of money coming in, or that his wife does if he meets an early death and she lives on for a long time. This thing's just going to be sending out checks every month. He doesn't need to worry about it. And he also doesn't need to worry about having bad years or losses or reading about the market. So we didn't put all his money in here. We just put a significant piece to buy him the level of benefits that he wanted. Now, what I really like about this solution, and we're going to start doing on these videos, is this solution, this decision for him checks off 6 of the 7 worries that we cover in this whole video series. And it checks a lot of boxes. So we could start out the Social Security box. He effectively has doubled his Social Security check between he and his wife on a guaranteed basis that he can't outlive it. I mean, that's the beauty of Social Security, and that's the beauty of this annuity. No matter how long you live, you got to check for a certain amount. It checks that box. It checks off the long-term care box with the income doubler, so he's got some extra cash flow exactly when he needs it for as long as he needs it with the long-term care. It checks off the IRA 401k box because it is an IRA, and we're going to turn it into a Roth over the next 4 years, where he actually didn't buy one $850,000 annuity. He bought 4 annuities in these amounts. And these are tied to the amount he plans to convert, because you have to convert all of an annuity. So you can't take part of an annuity and turn it into a Roth. You got to do the whole thing. So he bought 4 separate annuities, and they perform exactly like the $850,000 annuity did. It's just individually. So it checks off the IRA box. It checks off the retirement income box because that's the topic of the show. It checks off the estate planning box because it's going to pass to his heirs tax-free if both of them would meet an early demise. And we have a number of people buy these things, do the conversions to a Roth, and then they delay the income till probably 80. And then it's a much larger amount, and then they pass away before they really collect a lot of income. So there are a residual in a lot of these annuities that goes to the heirs because the people didn't collect the income long enough because the residual gets paid out, and because of the fact that it's in a Roth, it gets paid out tax-free to the heirs, and then it checks the income tax box for the same reasons. So I very much thank you for listening. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And it's great to have you as viewers and listeners.
Thank you.